Hi everyone, it's Tamara here with another card making tutorial. This time I'm using one of the gorgeous images from Elvi Studio, Lola as a Fairy, or known in Spanish, and I do apologize for my poor Spanish translation, Lola convertida en hada por primavera. So I'm going to be doing a whole Copic colored scene today. So there's just Copic coloring only. And I am using some of the background builder flowers from Sweet November Stamps. And I'm using the Crocus background builder. So let's get started with some coloring. I will have all the colors shown up in the top left hand corner, but I will also have all the colors as usual listed in the description box below. So I'm just wanting to lay down a very light color to start, just to get the paper nice and wet. I was using Y000, but it was very dry marker, so I grabbed out my Y00, but when I did start colouring, it too was dry, so I stopped colouring for a little bit and did some marker maintenance and got these all refilled. So they do work a lot better once I get started. So you'll see now that I've grabbed out the yellow 000 again, and going in and filling out all those spaces between the flowers and in the sky, getting that background ready for a final coat of colouring. So I am working in the same direction, so kind of across the page, to get a nice smooth blend as I'm filling in all the colours. So now I will go in with my darkest colour, which will be right up the top, which is YV02. Sorry, that's Y02, and then I'm blending that out with the Y00, and so I'm going over partially that color to make sure it's a nice smooth blend between the colors, and going partially down into this section, so trying to make the areas kind of match in size and making sure it is matching all the way across. So just lightly going into those areas, and then we'll finally do a final coat of the Y000 to get that nice smooth blend down the bottom. So again, just working, it doesn't matter with this lighter color, especially because these will be a darker color. You can go over the leaves a little bit, but I did try and stay out of them as much as possible. Now we'll start coloring the skin of Lola. So I'm just using my lightest color just to work out where all my shadows will be. I nearly forgot to do her belly. So now I'm going in with an E04, and I'm just doing a very small amount of E04 as my main shadow. So I'm going to have all the light source kind of coming from the top right hand side. So all my shadows will be on the left and underneath her. So now I'm blending the E04 out with my E11, just kind of working up in small kind of motions up into the white cardstock. So flicking those out, so that bottom leg and the back leg will be quite dark. So with my E01, I'll blend that E11 out. And with that back leg, I'll do most of it coloured with this E01 because it will be quite shadowed back there. And now I'm going in with the E00, and then our lightest color again, which was the E000, to make that the highlight. Now I did want to give her some nice rosy cheeks, so I used R30 and then blended that out with the R00 and then with the E00 to blend that out. So I always do put a little bit of shadowing in the eyes. So I have got my C3 and then just blended that out with the C1 and C00. And then I'm just going to use a couple of the browns to do her eyes, which is E29, E27, and the highlight color will be the E23. Now I'm going in with my lightest brown to kind of work out where my kind of shadow areas will be, the darker portions of her hair. And then just using little flicking motions, I'm just going to kind of try and put some strands into her hair with the darkest color E79, blend that out with the E77. And I did forget to do her little eyebrows, so I'll pop them in. Then we do the E74 and then go back to that final color that we used originally, the E71, and to go into that white kind of highlight area. So now they're all coloured, and I finished off her little eyebrows as well. Now I am going to do her little hair pieces, her top and her skirt all the same color in our greens. So I'll be using the YG11, the BG96, the G24, and the final color is the G43. So we're going to now blend that out with the lightest color. Oh, sorry, the second lightest color, and then we'll go in with the lightest, which is the YG11, and blend that out to the highlights. Such a pretty green. I really like this one. You know, you've got the shadow from the BG96 and then that pretty color. So with the berries, I'm just going to use some of the colors I'll be using for the crocuses. So the VO9 and the highlight color, the VO5. Now with her wings, I'm just going to do two colors blending together. So down the bottom, I've started with the darkest of the blue violets, then went up to the BV00, and now the lightest color is the BV000. And now starting from the top, I'm going to use my BG11, blend it out with the BG10, and then to merge the colors together using the BG7T70. So I've come back in with that BV000 to get that smooth blend between the purple and the blue, and then I'll bring in that BG70 again just to make sure it's a nice smooth transition between those two colors. Now, as I just mentioned before, I'm doing the stems the exact same color that I did her little outfit, just so that we're just using the same colors and you're not having to get a bunch of colors out. So now I'm just putting in the darkest highlights with my BG96. So everything's kind of on that left-hand side because of the sun coming in from the right. Blending that out with the G24, keeping the darkest colors on that side. And then we've got our second lightest color, the G43. And then we'll blend that out to our highlight, which is our YG11, and I will be bringing that up the stem so that it blends in with those little petals as well. So you can see me bringing up quite high into those petals. Now I did want to kind of create it so it looked like this little scene is set amongst like a field of flowers. So I'm just putting a very simple look of kind of gardens at the background or trees at the background. So now I'm putting in the darkest colors kind of to base that tree or the trees, and then just blending up into what will be the high parts of those bushes and trees in the background. So it's quite simple. It doesn't have to look, you know, I'm no drawer, so it doesn't have to look perfect, but just so that it kind of makes it, you know, add to the scene by just adding some simple kind of coloring to kind of, you know, stretch that scene out. Now I didn't have a lot of ink in my YG11 left, and I didn't have a refill, so I do have to purchase one of those. So I did end up bringing in the YG01 to kind of blend that out down the bottom. So now let's get started on the crocuses. So I went in with my lightest color and put the shadows in. So obviously you're wanting to pay attention to where those petals overlay the other petals. Now between the VO9 and the VO6 there is a little bit of space. So I am just using the tip to tip method to get a nice smooth blend between those two colors. So you'll just see me using the VO6 to touch the lid or the top of the VO9. And you can see how well that actually blends those two colors together, even though they're a little bit far apart. So now we'll bring in the VO5, blend that out, working into that white space. And then we'll go with our lightest color for our flowers will be the V12 to go into our highlights. So you just want to make sure you're getting some nice highlights and lowlights. So I didn't miss one of the VO5s there, so I brought that back in. So we'll just blend out that V12 over those little white areas of these two flowers. Now, because it was still looking not as smooth as I like, so I didn't go back in with the darkest VO9, but I'm just bringing that VO6 back in to reinforce those shadow areas. Then we bring back in the VO5 to blend that out, and then bring that V12 in for a final pass. So just kind of working to get a very smooth transition between each colours into our highlights. We'll finish on this one, and then we'll go and do the other two flowers on the right hand side of the card. So I'm going to grab the V12 again and go in with our shadows. Obviously this flower in the front will be overhanging some of that flower at the back, and obviously where this kind of shadows down the bottom, that's away from our light source, and a little bit of that top petal. Now I'm going to do this little flower that Lola is holding as well, the same color. So now I'm going in with our darkest color, the VO9, to just work out those shadows again that we'd set out with our lightest color. Just working a little flicking motion so that we can get a nice smooth blend. So I thought that just needed a little bit darker underneath there. Now I'm going to do that tip to tip again between the VO9 and the VO6. Just slightly touching that as we work those colors together. So there will be the shadows underneath. And then we can get these little shadows. So obviously you've got the petal folded over. So now we're flicking up from the base up into that white cardstock. And we'll do the same on the base of these two petals. Just working up so that you've got a kind of rough line there for the blending to blend out a lot nicer. So we'll go now in with the VO5 and just working down to those highlight spots. That will be quite dark in there because it is quite behind this flower. Working up to the top, and again this will be highlighted kind of that top right hand side, and the same with this other petal. So I forgot to do the tip to tip with this little one here, so I've grabbed out the VO9 and VO6 again, and grab the VO5 before we go back in with our lightest color and all these flowers down here, petals, just into that highlight white space. Clicking that top one, and then I will do this again to do another layer on these flowers to make sure we get a nice smooth blend like we did on our left hand flowers. So as I mentioned before, I'm just going in with the second darkest color to set those shadow areas again. You don't want to put too much of the dark color down there because we want to make sure we've got that nice highlight at the top. So now we'll blend that VO6 out with the VO5 down into that highlight space. Just working the same areas again, but just ensuring you've just got that nice smooth blend between all our colors. And our final pass with the V12. So just working down into those stems so that you've got a nice merge of the purple and the green together, so that the flower is just growing out of those stems. And that's our flowers all done. We just need to do the inner portions of those. So I did want to just go over these again. So I have done a little bit of tip to tip between the VO5 and the V12 because my V12 was drying out a little bit as well. Now I did want to add some extra details to these down so it looks like we're in a field of flowers. So I did some spots of the darker greens which are down the bottom. And then I've grabbed out some of those purples, and I'm just going to put those in there so it looks like there's other crocus bushes growing out in the background. So it doesn't, it's obviously not a real depiction of that, but it's just something just to create a little bit of interest in our scene. But the main scene that we're wanting to show are these beautiful crocuses and the gorgeous Lola pouring the water into those crocuses. So now we'll just finish the middle sections. So I'm only doing two colors, Y24 as the shadow color and then the Y06 to blend that out. Now I'm trying to draw some little water droplets. So I'm not the best drawer, so I do apologize. This isn't the best. So if you're trying to learn how to draw, you won't get that from me. But you just want to try and make it look as close as possible so that whoever receives this gets the gist of what you're wanting. So I've grabbed my Nuvo kind of sparkly glitter pen and put some glitter to Elvi's wings and her little cup. And now I'm just kind of adding some little magic around her, just using my Posca pen. And I make sure that I forgot to do these little dots in the middle and flick out from that. And then I add all these like kind of little dots around, so it just looks like magic is coming off her. So we'll add the same over here around those little stars that we've flecked off her, and just down the bottom. So just add some randomly around her. Now I'm going to grab out my Misty now that I've let the Posca pen and the glitter on her wings dry. So I'm just doing a very small sentiment because I've only got a small amount of room up the top. So I'm just going to give that a rub because I hadn't used this stamp set before, and just using my Versamark Onyx black ink, just gave that a double stamp and let that dry. Now I have cut and scored a kind of wine coloured card base, and I have attached that panel to the front. So this is a finished card for this tutorial. So it's so fun combining different sets to create a beautiful sweet scene that you're able to give to somebody, and just adding, you know, some little details like some bushes in the background. They might not be totally realistic, but they just give you an idea that this beautiful little fairy Lola is in a field of beautiful crocus flowers. I hope you've enjoyed this card making tutorial. If you have, please hit the like button, and if you'd like to see any future videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.